Hey everyone, in this video we're just going to take a really quick look at where the rig is, some of the new features, where it's going, and I could really use some feedback on the spine in particular. The spine is basically an area where you can have something that is a little more structured and typically driven by FK, or you can have something that is very loose, meaning total freeform. Difficult to keep the character's shape though and reset back to the character's normal dimensions and size. And the reason for that is it's typically very stretchy or easy to change the character's shape. Now, this method here is really FK centric. There's a couple things added there to try to make it a little bit easier, but yeah, let me know what you think. Alright, so at the bottom here we have our gizmo, much like before, where you can animate the character any way you want. From there we have the hips. You grab the outer ring and it'll actually move the entire midsection. Grab the inner ring and it'll give you a little bit of control over the lower body independent of the spine. This is sometimes helpful for, fine tweaking and adjustments. Now you'll notice that as I rotate the top, these elements here don't update, or they basically just follow along. So that's one use or one setup of the spine here. Alright, so now let's take a look at the foot. The foot has a panel or a control object, and this control object is intended to be used for all purposes, for the general placement and orientation of the foot. So for example, here you can see that as I'm rotating it, the knee is locked to it. Now this may seem a little weird at first, especially as I rotate it one way or the other, but generally this allows for much greater control. You'll notice that the knee flips in this particular pose, but if I take the foot and actually rotate it to how it normally would be in that instance, you can see that the knee object is exactly where it should be. So this is going to do a better job with the knee about 90% of the time. In those other cases, you still have total control over the knee as well. Now in addition to that, on this foot panel in the Modify tab, we have specific controls for the toes and the heel. So there's the toe going up and down in case we want to have the character tap their toes. And then we have the heel. So this allows you to raise up on the ball of the foot or drop down. Dropping down is great for climbing ladders and sitting on the edge of a cliff. So going up, this is great if you want to flex the ankle. Okay, so beyond that, let's go up to the spine and show how this works. So the spine by default is pure IK. See how it's just very, very rigid. And so what's happening here is, we can pose fairly quickly just by using the page up and page down. And so there I can do a really quick pose. So it's not too terrible. It's very explicit, meaning that you have total control over it. Now in some instances, you can use this gizmo, which is sitting in the back of the character. And this is kind of a twist control. So if I rotate this, you'll notice that the character arcs their back. one way or the other. Add a little bit of twist going up and down the spine. Get a nice side to side bend. And you can use these in combination. So I can lean the character way forward, grab the twist, and then arch their back. Okay, so you can use all these things together to try to get the pose that you want. So if it's not quite right, go all the way out. Alright, now in addition to this, we have a few more controls. We have shoulder shrug, so you can move the shoulders up and down a little bit. If you go too far, it just gets really weird, one way or the other. Okay, so a lot of these things give you control, but if you go too far, it's not going to be right. Then you have the hand, and the hand works much like before. The elbow is particularly difficult to do for the arms, simply because of the range of motion. Currently, the elbow is locked in between these two poses, or in between the shoulder and the hand. So, for example, if I take the hand here, switch over to world, bring it down. So the hands are controlled by this control object for the hands here, and you want to make sure that you always use it. So here I'm just positioning my hand out. Now you'll notice in this case the elbow is really close to the shoulders, and we would just need to take this and animate it wherever we want it to be. So there are some poses that are going to be a little bit weird. Nothing I can really do about that, I don't think. I'll give it some thought. But it's not too bad. It just requires occasional tweaking. Unlike the legs down here, which are a little more robust. Now you'll notice that if I pull too far, the whole thing kind of falls apart. So it is up to you to make sure that you have enough leg room and everything is nicely, you have enough slack in the knees and so forth. Now if you pull it too far with the final skin mesh, it's not going to be like a hole in the mesh like it is in the rig. It's just going to stretch some vertices in weird ways. Okay, but if you keep things within their limits, you'll be just fine. Alright, now let's take a closer look at the hand. So for the hand, we have individual nubs. You can grab each one of these and rotate them around, just as you'd expect. Or you can double click on this control object at the base. Make sure up here at the top it's set to use pivot point center, and then you can just curl the object into itself. So if you wanted to do, say, a really quick fist, just get a nice lineup of it. Oops, switch selection mode. There we go. We have all of our objects. Just rotate them down. Same holds true for the thumb. Oops. If you select them all, it's going to curl in. If you select only the base, it's going to rotate the entire chain. Okay, like that. Okay. I spent some time trying to figure out ways to switch between local and world space, and had a couple things, but they weren't entirely stable. That's one of the decisions that I've constantly been going with here, is if something isn't stable, it doesn't get added. So everything here is very predictable and nothing really twitchy. I'm going to continue to take a look at those once I finish up with other aspects of the rig, namely the face. Alright, so speaking of, let's take a look. Now, much like with the other objects, the head is controlled by this major object, and you'll notice that we get some nice deformation there, nice and smooth, no matter which way you rotate it. So we get some nice deformation going on there. And I haven't hooked these up yet. They're acting a little bit weird compared with an earlier example. The only difference between now and then was update 6. So I'm going to take another look at those, see if they can be as useful as we want them to be. But it's basically for eyebrows, cheeks. I'm going to make the puffing cheek happen in that way as well. Now, come to realize that we basically need a little bit of a menu off here to the side. And so these controls over here, so this one here is the mouth. So we have full control over the jaw. We have this one here, which allows tilting the jaw. While not physically possible in most cases, it does give some nice kind of cartoony poses, which could be good for us. I haven't hooked these up yet, but those would be smile and frown, left and right. So if you had your character like this, set up, and then you can drag these up and down to give a little bit more smile or a little less. And those will be handled through morph targets. Now up here at the top we have our eyes. And so we can select both of them and look around. Or we can select them independently and position them however we want. We additionally have controls for the upper eyelid and the lower eyelid. Now one thing that you can do, which is kind of cool, is if we select these two. Now I set up a custom right click menu. One is for a line, and it also allows you to quickly switch between local and world coordinates. In this case we want to go to local coordinates. And if I drag this up and down, you can see how they collapse onto one another. So they move in opposites. So this is a really quick way to kind of get in a blink. So just want to make this a little bit easier for you guys. And of course you can do as many as you want at the same time. Now the reason why I put a line in the right click menu as well is if you have an object that's say like way over here and you want to center it, all you have to do is do right click, align, and then, oh, let me do this as an example. Right click, align, and then click on the center object, and it'll put it back to where it normally is. Okay, so I still need to add that little center marker for these. There you go. So that is the rig as it currently stands. I haven't added any rotation of the eyelid so it can tilt in and out, but may do that as well. Yeah, let me know what you think.